when I hear Amelia talk and I hang around Amelia, I realize I got a long way to go yet. She seems like a proper Christian to me. And I feel very rough around the edges when I'm around people like Amelia, you know. And so my name's Kevin. For those of you who haven't been here this weekend, I have been visiting this church off and on since 1989. And so I am from Stoke-on-Trent. I was in the hotel having breakfast this morning, and there were some Port Vale supporters there. Port Vale, okay, so that's second division in the football deal here. And I'm a Stoke City supporter, and we're from the same city. So I didn't make friends and influence people positively this morning. I was hurling abuse across the breakfast room, you know. And I thought I still had a Stoke accent, but I don't. I listen to them, you know. So I don't know what I sound like to you. If I've come out with any Americanisms, because I live in America now, I'm very proud that I still have a British accent. I said I'm very proud that I still have a British accent. So my father-in-law says, I won't use the language he uses, but he says, oh, you're a Yank. That's what he tells me. I'm not a Yank, am I? No, good, yeah. All right, I can preach safely here this morning then. I became a Christian when I was 25 years of age. I'm 67 now. I became a Christian. I'm trying to find where I'm going this morning, yeah. So, I became a Christian when I was 25. I became a Christian because my wife went out one Sunday night, didn't tell me where she was going. She came home and she says, these were her exact words, "That's it." There's no children in the room anymore, is there? Okay, because this gets a little bit graphic in a minute. So she came home and she'd been to church, a church just like this one, and she came home, she goes, "That's it. I've become a Christian. Everything's got to change." And I thought, Christian? Does that mean we have no sex life anymore? I don't like the sound of that. And then the good news came. Hopefully the cooking will improve as well. So I'm sure there's another line to that story there, but I won't go there. Is Anne in the room this morning? Anne. Anne's the lip lady. So I became a Christian when I was 25 in Stoke-on-Trent, and I had no church experience until 5 weeks after she became a Christian. And the change, and she was a lovely girl before. I have never heard that girl swear, ever, you know. I don't recollect ever hearing her criticizing anybody before she became a Christian. She was more Christian before she became a Christian than most Christians are after they become Christians. She was just like a really sweet girl, you know, and so kind. But I saw such a dramatic change in that first month of her becoming a Christian that it piqued my interest. It got my interest, you know. It's just, and you're the guy today, right? And so it really captured my interest. And I went to church, this Assemblies of God church, and it's a little town, it's the city centre, it's called Hanley, and it was an Assemblies of God church. And so she took me the first time. It freaked me out, I'll be honest. I was still in the John Travolta mode back then, you know, and so I was fresh out of like nightclubs and stuff. And she took me to church. Other than her, I was the youngest person in the room. Everybody else was like really old. They were as old as Cliff, you know, like really, really old. And I sat there in pews, right? And there was a guy playing an instrument I'd never seen before in my life. It was an accordion thing, you know. And he had a mildly hunched back. And let's just say, I got to know him after I became a Christian. He was a lovely pastor, you know, really great guy. But in my pre-Jesus, a few weeks before I became a Christian mode, first time in church ever in my life, sitting in a pew with Mother Teresa and sitting next to me, you know, she was the reason I was there. It wasn't nothing to do with church. It was her. Something had happened. I could see it, you know. And so I'm there. And So I can't stress this enough. I had absolutely no interest in God. Even when I was sitting there, I had no interest in God. The only time I ever talked about God was after the 5th pint of Guinness or something, and suddenly I was an expert on theology, and everybody had to hear my thoughts on God, who I didn't even believe existed. It's like, and I never studied anything, My wife went from, overnight, being totally atheist, literally believing, this is the only strange thing about her, she believed in this, so she followed this guy's books named, and it may not mean anything to you, don't even worry about it, but his name was Eric von Daniken. He believed aliens put us here, And I didn't even think that was that strange at the time, but it's just a thing she had. So she went from that to believing that somebody she'd never seen, heard anything before, just like overnight. And I didn't understand what had happened to her. That's why I was there. So I was also a bit afraid that it might be a cult. So I was like checking it out. And so I sat there totally bored for 4 weeks. I'm thinking, how the heck did this happen to her sitting in this nonsense? That's what I was thinking. The guy was playing this accordion like this. I thought, what century is this? And I must admit, I was a bit arrogant. I thought I was the coolest person in the room. I did honestly think that. I thought, nobody's as cool as me in here. And then the guy would run down the steps and he'd play the piano. And then he'd get up and he'd give announcements. Then he'd run down and play the piano. I thought, that guy must be knackered, by the end of this service. So then he got up and preached. And when he got up and preached, it meant absolutely nothing to me. So this was Sunday nights. In those days, they used to do Sunday nights where it was like entertaining gospel service, even though these guys won't admit it, it was seeker sensitive, and so I thought, this is a bunch of nonsense. Honestly, I was very judgmental. And then this old guy came to me, and there's no way any way I would have related to this man in normal life. No way. And he said to me, he goes, "You're really bored, aren't you?" I said, "You have no idea." And he goes, you should come next Sunday morning. I go, "Oh, what's happening then?" He goes, "Oh, we do church on Sunday morning." What have I been doing for the last 4 weeks? He goes, "Yeah, just check out next Sunday morning." Well, the next Sunday morning what happened, this straight-talking Yorkshire preacher, so bear in mind, I know nothing about this church. I just know it's full of old people, and I know nothing about church, politics, nothing like that. Well, apparently, I found out several years later, the pastor wheeled him in that Sunday morning to preach to the church because nobody in the church liked him. And this guy came in, this straight-talking Yorkshireman came in, and I'm sitting on, I don't know how I found myself on the second row on my first visit on a Sunday morning. I don't know how I got there. I was sitting like right here, like this. And he comes off the stage like this, and he went into a rant and a rave about if you don't love your brother or your sister, you don't love God. And I'm thinking, well, I don't love God, and I don't like you, but I love this girl. What's happening to her? Well, by the time he finished, nobody gave any appeal, nothing like that. By the time he finished, I was at the front, on the floor. Thank you. Oh, Glynis, God bless you. Baptize the guy next to you when you finish. And I was literally on my knees, fresh out of a nightclub the night before, bear in mind, on my knees at the front, and these trained altar workers had no idea what to do with me. And my dad died when I was 10. I was a football hooligan. I had a self-esteem complex. I projected superiority. This is all in hindsight. I had no idea at the time. But really, I felt really inferior, and Glynis, behave. And You know I'm joking, right? You know I'm joking. And I was on my knees, and they had no idea what to do with me. And this guy, Joe, sat on the stage and did nothing for 2 hours. He just let God deal with me. And you know, only a couple of times since have I felt loved by God, felt loved by God like I did then. It's like I came out of there, I had to get my wife to drive home. I felt so weak, you know. And life changed instantly. I got converted. Amen. I don't normally use that word very often, but I went from darkness to light in that 2-hour period. I went from not believing in God to believing even more than any of you have ever believed. I was like a fanatic for a while till I calmed down, you know. And within 3 weeks, my house was full of teenagers, and I was not even preaching at them. It was just, they were troubled kids in my neighborhood where I lived. They all became the first youth group I ever had, you know. I couldn't even say Jesus' name out loud yet in front of other people. But then, I won't go into the whole story here, but I got baptized with the Holy Spirit. Nobody taught me on it because I was too proud to go to the class, because the guy who did the class was way too enthusiastic and trying to pressurize me. And that's the wrong way to deal. Glennis, come back. Yeah. I'll come out there. And I'm acting like I really know her. We spent 6 hours on Zoom once. That's about the depth of our relationship. So, you know, she's a foreigner. You know that, right? She's from down south. And so I got baptized with the Holy Spirit, and I started walking to work instead of driving. It was a 1.5 mile walk. And I went through a year, rain or shine, praying in this new language, a mile and a half to work and a mile and a half back. My life was totally transformed. I had this vision one Saturday morning. To be honest, my life was full of visions for a while. You know, it was amazing. I'd never prayed in my life. After I became a Christian, I couldn't stop. I was praying all the time. I was like driving people nuts. I had this vision of me falling into this river. It wasn't a vision. It was like and some of you will freak out at this, it was like an out-of-body experience. I was experiencing it while seeing myself doing it. It gets more weird. Trust me, it gets more weird. I fell into this river, but it wasn't water. It was warm oil. And I was like floating around like this, completely under, I was totally immersed in it. And I was floating around upside down. I was out of control, but really happy. And then suddenly, boom, and I land on this sandbank just for a moment. Then I'm back in the river. And I didn't like the sandbank because I was covered in sand. And then I went back in this oil and I was floating. I don't know how long it went on for. And the moment I came back to this, I didn't hear it, but I sensed God say to me, that's how your life's going to be. I'll go this side. I felt like God say, this is not even in my notes, none of this. This is for one person in the room, and I know it's for all this, right? So the rest of you'll just have to deal with it, you know. So he said, that's how your life's going to be. The sandbanks are the trials. The sandbanks are when people stab you in the back. Take a look, right? The sandbanks are when tragedies happen. But then God, in his mercy, causes you to fall back in this river of oil again. I said, God causes you to fall back into that river of oil again. I'm not going to do some Bible study on what oil means and all that. It was very pleasant, let's just say that. My wife did change, but our sex life was still great. The cooking never improved. God made 7 days in a week and gave her a repertoire of 6 meals. That's all I got. And I became a Christian when I was 25. 25. What you see now is the good version, the holier-than-thou version. That's what you see now. You don't see the young man, 14, hiring buses to take hundreds of football hooligans around the country to watch the team and smash the town up. You don't see the guy who's only views women as sexual objects, the young man who saw girls just as sexual objects. You don't see the young man who was angry and would pick a fight at anybody who talked down to him or trapped him. You don't see that person. You only see this on the way to looking like Jesus version of Kevin. And you think, when he starts to talk this morning, some of you are going to think, that's easy for him to say because he's this version. You don't see that one day with God is like 1,000 years. And 1,000 years is like God. When I was a little boy, this is not even the message. This is just for one person in this room, and the rest of you all have to deal with it. You know, when I was a little boy, and my mum was bringing up 3 little boys, outside my house, about 20 yards away, there was a bit of a grass slope and then a wooden fence there, and I used to sit on that wooden fence. So I'm not even saying we were poor, nothing like that. We were just regular people, you know. So I got no sob story for you. And I would sit on this fence, and I could see over the tops of the houses in the neighborhood that I lived in, and I could see the posh houses on the hill. And my dream was, one day, I wonder if I can do well at school, get a good job, and live over there. That was my dream as a little boy. Some of you, you've never had those thoughts. But I had those thoughts. I wondered if one day I'll own a car. I wonder if one day I'll be married and I'll have kids. That's how I used to think. What I was really asking is, do I have a future? That's what I was asking. So I have a little grandson, Judah. He's 7. He's just like I was when I was 7. He thinks way too deep. I remember my auntie saying to me, don't be so serious. I just cut out the bad language. Don't be so serious, because I must have been super thoughtful, you know. And I would sit on this fence and think, I wonder what the rest of my life's going to be. When I became a Christian, people say, oh, I got this life verse. Well, I stumbled into an Old Testament book called Jeremiah, and the first chapter has stuck with me for the last 42 years. This chapter is like amazing. It's like God tells him, before you were even born, I formed you. See, you're only seeing the On the Way to Jesus version, right, Kevin? That's all you're seeing. I'm trying to give somebody in the room hope here that I know how you feel about church. I know how you feel about your life right now. But he knows the plans he has for us. God, before we were even born, he knew us. He formed us. Somehow, and you have to allow some mystery with God. We can't, even the brightest minds in here, even the ones who studied the Bible for 50 years, even they have to leave some things to the mystery of God. And in this formation in your mother's womb, God put deep down there the plans, the purposes that he had for your life. When you were in your mother's womb, he put in that part of you that in church and in the Bible we call in your spirit. He put all the plans, all the possibilities, all the potential, all his thoughts for you, he put in that spiritual part of you. It's a part of you. It's like the hand in the glove. It's like, what touches you? Is it the glove, the body, or is it the spirit on the inside? And all that stuff that he put in your heart, in your spirit, the spiritual part of you, that's been seeping out ever since you were born. So I use the word seeping on purpose, because every now and again it leaks out. So every now and again you'll meet somebody like me, right, who comes along and actually believes the Bible's true, and actually believes that God did form you in your mother's womb. And then all that stuff that he put in that spirit part of you starts to seep out. That word seep is really important, because people like me come along, or you have a chance encounter, or you have a near-death experience like I had 3 years ago, and it triggers this stuff it's like bursting out of an orange, the juice bursting out of an orange into your soul, which is your mind, it's your emotions. And then you start to subconsciously think, I wonder if I could do this. So sometimes you'll meet somebody who says, yeah, I went to drama school when I was a teenager, and I had aspirations to be a dancer or an actress, and then I got pregnant and never followed it through. Or my dad said, don't be so stupid, and I cut out all the bad language there, right? Don't be so stupid. You should go do this. You should go do that. Their whole lives, every now and again, they ask themselves, what if? But you know what God is able to do? God is able, as these things are seeping out, and then it's amazing the emotions that are around the stuff that seeps out. We sometimes blame God because things didn't work out, or we blame our mum, or blame our dad, or blame ourselves, and we live tortured. But God is able to restore the things that seeped into our soul that now torment us. He's able to restore to us everything that we've lost, that's been stolen, and he's able, no matter how old we are in here, Anne, no matter how old we are in here, no matter how young you are or how old you are, no matter how down in the dumps you are or how awesome your career is, God is able to restore his plans, his purposes for your life. So when I get into preaching for the next 2 hours now, and I want you to bear in mind, with God, all things are possible. Hands up if that made any sense to you, what I just said. All right, it's like 20 of you. That's good. I'm going to start all over again, okay? I feel bad. Is Glennis outside?
Oh, she's got this cough. It's all the time, so don't worry about it.
All right. Apologize to her if I have to. So, forget that last bit. So, the stuff that seeped out, and when I talk now, I'm just going to do like 10, 15 minutes more. That's all I'm going to do. An excerpt from what I was going to talk about. But I want you to remember, God is able to pick up where he left off. Sorry, able to pick up where you left off. He's able to bring to life again the stuff that seeped out. That word seeped is really important. If anybody's got a synonym, I'm all ears. So the stuff that seeped out, he's able to bring that back to life. Let's use an Easter Sunday word. He's able to resurrect it. So Lazarus died. He has no control, right? So in John chapter 11, sorry, I've remembered that not everybody's been here. So we've been in John chapter 11. It's where two sisters, Martha and Mary, have a brother who's sick, and they send a message to Jesus. And Jesus dawdles all his way. Is that still a word? Dawdle. Yeah. He dawdled all the way back to their town, and eventually he comes back to life because Jesus deals with the situation. And so I want you to walk away from here today with one day with God is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. We think it should happen in 5 minutes. Usually it takes 40 years. I'll go to this side. So we think it happens in a day, but sometimes it can take decades. It's weird. If I was God, I wouldn't do it to you. But then you'd all be messed up. You'd have things before your time. And so when you get to John chapter 12, that's after Lazarus has been raised from the dead. Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem because they're going to crucify him. They're already plotting what they're going to do to Jesus. Lazarus is risen from the dead now, and it says these words. This is every evangelist's dream come true. And it says these words in chapter 12, verse 9. It says, the large crowd of the Jews then learned that Jesus was there, and they came not just for Jesus, but that they might also see Lazarus, whom he raised from the dead. But the chief priests planned to put Lazarus to death also, because on account of him, because of Lazarus, many of the Jews were going away and were believing in Jesus. A bit lower down, they go in, and it's the riding into Jerusalem, Hosanna, Hosanna. It's like last Sunday, right? And it says, so the people who were with him, when he called Lazarus out of the tomb and raised him from the dead, continued to share Jesus with other people. So here's a few things that keep us away from the purpose of God for our lives, or a major purpose of God in our lives. One of the things that keeps us away is from fulfilling that purpose is shame. Because we look great in here, but we're not so great Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday. We got stuff we're dealing with. And to be honest, part of the reason we don't deal with it is because we don't know the truth enough to set us free. That's what I'm going to talk about tonight. Because this morning I'm talking about how you qualify to roll the stone away for a neighborhood or for a city. Well, I was. I'm not anymore. But tonight, I'm going to talk about how we take the grave clothes off ourselves and off other people. The grave clothes are the things that are lingering, that cause you to sin. Sorry, I've rephrased that. Cause us to sin. And then we feel shame and don't feel like we're good enough to do the things that have seeped out of our spirit into our soul, and we know they're there and they torment us. Hands up if I'm making any sense to anybody in the room here. It's getting less and less. We'll be down to one by the end, right? And so shame keeps us away. Feeling like we don't have the ability to do what the specialist Christians do. You know, the people who stand up here sound like they know it all. From Stoke. You know those people. You are led to believe that we're the only ones who can do it. You're led to believe that you have to bring your friends here to listen to people like me so that they can get saved. But God called you to go into all the world and share this good news. You know, when it says preach, it doesn't mean preach. That original word, it's in the Greek language, doesn't mean doing this. It means having a conversation. It's dialogue. Every one of you in the room is good at that. So people say to me afterwards when I preach, they go, yeah, you are gifted to do what you do, because I know everybody in my well, not in my neighborhood, they don't like me, the ones in my neighborhood. I feel like that anyway, but the people I've got to know in the area where I live, all the baristas in coffee shops, I know them all. I'm friends in 5 minutes. But some people say to me, well, that's because you are you and I'm an introvert. I think this conversational dialogue style of preaching, I think introverts, I have a suspicion, introverts are better at this than extroverts. Because extroverts are interesting, but I'm speaking from experience, but are usually not interested. Where introverts, once they can break in or are allowed into somebody's life, they're there. They're with you. They're listening. They're not talking to you like this. Yeah. How's it going? And seeing who the next person is. They're not distracted like this. I'm speaking from experience, you know. Sorry, I freaked you out then. And so I think introverts are designed to be with people because they are genuinely interested and they don't feel the need to chit-chat about all what they're good at, like extroverts do. And so the things that keep us away from the purpose of God are shame, feeling like we're not, don't have the ability, and feeling like I don't love Jesus enough yet. That's another one that I found. Oh yeah, you guys really love Jesus. It's only because we've learned how to look like we love Jesus. Because we read our Bible, we pray, and we're pretty animated in church. And we look like we're serious Christians, right? Because we talk about doing what we do. That isn't the qualification. That isn't the qualification. The qualification is you know you are accepted in the beloved. That's where it all starts. It isn't what you do. It isn't keeping the 10 Commandments. It's knowing through the cross and the resurrection, you are, and I'm quoting from the Bible, right? I am accepted in the beloved. God's desire is you. That's the qualification. You know when your children were in school and did you have children? Sorry. Yeah. So I'm really blowing up your life this weekend. When you look at school photographs, my daughter got one from her school, 300 girls in one photo. Guess how long it took me to find Kerry's face? 0.6 of a second. I knew exactly. Well, I didn't know where she was, but I found her like that. God has the ability to love you as much as he loves anybody else in the room. And it doesn't matter how you behave. He still loves you. His goal is to transform us. But we qualify because he made it possible for us to come into relationship with God. All my dreams come true in John chapter 12, where Lazarus has impacted an entire town. I don't know if that's your dream, but that's my dream. I yearn to be with a group of people who love their neighborhood so much that they're willing to do anything to see it transformed. Now, some of you, you want it to happen in 5 minutes. The Christian landscape is littered with people who had a dream and the church didn't help them to fulfill it in 5 minutes. And they got all bitter and twisted or hurt sometimes and now are away, gone. Because they thought it should happen this year. And it doesn't work like that. I want to read something to you, and this is a long reading. And if you're not into poetry, this is the time to switch off, right? So this was written in the 14th century, but I took out all the these and the thous and the funny language. And it says this: above all, trust in the slow work of God. I'm going to take my time with this. Above all, trust in the slow work of God. We are quite naturally impatient in everything to reach the end without delay. We should like to skip the intermediate stages. We are impatient of being on the way to something unknown, something new. I'll put that in 20th century language, or 21st century. We're chasing the dream. And yet, it is the law of all progress that it is made by passing through some stages of instability, and that it may take a very long time. And so I think it is with you. Your ideas mature gradually. Let them grow. Let them shape themselves without undue haste. Don't try to force them on as though you could be today what time, that is to say, grace and circumstances acting on your own goodwill, will make of your tomorrow. Only God could say what this new spirit gradually forming in you will be. Give our Lord the benefit of believing that his hand is leading you, and accept the anxiety of feeling yourself in suspense and incomplete. I hated the word anxiety at the end there. I thought, that sounds like sin to me. But it is anxious to be in suspense and know what's around the corner. When preachers used to say to me, and I was worried about the future, or is this going to happen, blah, 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 they say, well, God's purposes are revealed like car headlights. You're driving in the dark and they only reveal 60 yards at a time. I hated that. Didn't like it. Hated it. I wanted to know now. I think I'm going to finish in 2 minutes. You've been really good, because this is not the most entertaining I've ever preached, but I think it's good for one person in here. So the 60-yard headlight thing never satisfied me. But here's the thing I found. A day with the Lord can seem like 1,000 years. 1,000 years, 40 years can seem like a day. Here's what I found. The stuff that seeps. So if for a moment we accept that the Bible's right when it says we are spirit first, that's the part that connects to God, right? And then secondly, we're soul, which is our mind, which is really important, and our emotions, which are really important, and spirit, soul, and body. Obviously, I don't think as much of body as I do about spirit and soul. Just take one look 2 feet south of my head, right? So spirit and soul. If I'm right, there's 3 parts to us, and God's put everything when he formed us in our mother's womb into our spirit about his hopes, his dreams, his plans, his pursuits for us, his ideas, his purpose. If I'm right, that's, and I think I am right, that seeps during our life from our spirit into our soul. That's why some people say, I'd never be a missionary to here. It's because deep down they've sensed the call of God. That sometimes happens. If I'm right that it seeps out into our soul, then I think I'm right when I say sometimes when you're quiet and you're reflective, you get God ideas. You get great ideas that God put in your spirit before you were even born. So if I'm right, and he's put the stuff in that spirit part of us before we were born, and life, wherever, causes it to seep like orange bursting out, juice flirting out of an orange, into our soul. Those things that are in our mind now and in our heart and our emotions, if we are not following those, we'll have, it'll cause us pain. It'll cause some of us a bit of agony, because God has his hand on us, and inside us, his dreams are beginning to explode, but we suppress them with busyness, playing music all the time, obsessing on fashion, obsessing on what we want from our career. And it's like God wants us to let those things die so that he can resurrect what's best. if I did a hands up now, I hope the person I've been praying for is the only one putting their hand up. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not into that, embarrassing that one person, you know. But I would like to challenge us with this. Lazarus had to die before he impacted the city. He had to literally die, and his family had to trust that Jesus could do it. And Jesus said, didn't I tell you, didn't I say that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So here's a couple of things that you can do to help with that believing, because that's really important. I haven't used the word faith here, have I? I've talked about believing. He said, if you will, didn't I say, if you would believe, you would see the glory of God. I'll even be this daring. I'll even be this daring, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings in here. I'm not that kind of person. But you've had a good go at life, and it ain't quite working out. What about if you believe and give God a chance to show you your full potential and original purpose? This is the best I preached this morning, right here. And I just want to pray. Lazarus came back from the dead, and a city was impacted. You can let things die. Let God resurrect them in his time, and get ready, it might be a bit of a wait. Let God resurrect them in his time, and then see the purpose of God fulfilled. I'll finish with this little story, and this is the first time I haven't told funny stories all the way through, and I felt super serious when I woke up this morning, you know, and I thought, yeah, it's time to be a proper preacher in here. And so I told a story the other night. I started going into this neighborhood. It's 99% African American. You know, I live in America. It's African American. I've been in Kosovo 3 weeks after the Serbs left. The condition of the housing is no worse in Kosovo at that time than it is in this neighborhood I go to. And people live in broken down houses. It's disgraceful. Schools have no books. Education isn't valued by the St. Louis public school system. I send them letters of rebuke every other week. I have had appointments, and they send junior people out rather than the people that matter. And they come up with some lame excuse about taxes, blah, blah, blah. But they can build a police department for $5 million. So, I got into a whine there, didn't I? Sorry. So I was going into this neighborhood. I actually got in there by mistake. I took a wrong turn, and I'm thinking, where the heck am I? So I saw some people standing on the corner. I get out, I go, hey, could you tell me where I am? Apparently, I shouldn't have done that, because it's in the top 5 most dangerous neighborhoods in America. So they said, oh, you're in the Ville. So when I got home, because they told me the way out, when I got home, you should Google the Ville, St. Louis. So the famous people you would have heard of, like Tina Turner, came out of there, Chuck Berry. Some of you older ones will remember Arthur Ashe, the first black tennis player to win Wimbledon. And then there's a whole stream of people. If you just go on Wikipedia and click on some of those names you don't recognize, they changed the world. Out of this one high school, 2 Nobel Prize winners came out of this high school with no money, no books, nothing. So it's an amazing story, you know. And they changed all kinds of laws for inner city. And so I started, it was freezing cold, and I saw people walk, and I would go down there and drive around. I didn't walk, because even the people locally said, don't walk around here, you know. So I would drive around, and I would just pray for the neighborhood. Then my wife came, then a few others came, and we were praying in cars, driving around the neighborhood. And then I started to notice when the temperature really dropped, not many people had big coats on. So I posted on Facebook, anybody in in this region where I live, if you've got any gently used, don't want no rubbish, gently used or brand new coats. So I must have, in our first winter, I must have given away 500 coats. So I'd fill my little Kia Soul, go around, and then I noticed when COVID hit that, I didn't notice, the teachers told me, hey, I don't know if you can help with this, but we've got 12 families, they've got no food every week. Kids don't eat. So I didn't know where the money was going to come from, but I committed to it. Just last year, $50,000 came in, and I only offered the chance to donate twice. $50,000 came in. Christians care. I'll go this side, just in case you don't believe me. Christians care. $50,000 came in from friends all over the world. South Korea, Australia, St. Louis, England. Not from New Life Church, but so there, I started giving out these groceries, and I had a spare box one Friday, and I'm driving around the neighborhood, can't see anybody. I pull up outside this old apartment building, and I see this lady sitting on the step with two little kids. So I think, I don't want to take these home. So I stop. I get out on this side of the car, because she's over there. I hold my hands up so she can see I don't have a gun. I said, hey, I don't mean you any harm. She goes, you're okay. And I said, can I come around the car? And she goes, yeah. I go around. I say, I have a spare box of groceries. Do you need them? So she goes, oh, yeah, thanks. So I put the box on her step. And she goes, I think I saw you last Saturday. And I went, oh, yeah. A few of us were praying in that building there. And she goes, yeah, I thought I saw you. So I said, yeah. I said, how long? So we got into conversation. And then she said, do you know where you are? She meant, do you know where you are? And I said, yeah, I'm in the Ville, right? She goes, yeah. I said, this is an amazing area. The history is amazing. She goes, I don't know anything about the history. So I told her about Tina Turner and Arthur Ashe, and then I said, then there's these other people, and I don't remember the names now, but at the time I'd just been studying it. So I said, oh yeah, there was this person who graduated from Sumner High School. He went on to get a Nobel Prize. This other lady, she went on to get a Nobel Prize for literature, and then these people went to Washington, changed and don't worry about it, but redlining laws to where they wouldn't let a black person live in a white neighborhood. The white people fixed it, so black people had to live in the ghetto. And so they went and changed all those laws. They changed the way you get a house loan, and I went through all this. She goes, yeah, but we're a different breed. And I said, you were made in the same image of God as they were. Eternity is in your heart and my heart, just like eternity was in their heart. All the creativity you need, God's put right here. And you know, if that's the only message we took into a community in Billingham, or just your few streets, that, hey, no, you have a hope and a future. You're made in the image of God. The things that Jesus did, you can do. The things that you dream about doing, you can do them. You can do them for the good of humanity and the glory of God. And I want to pray for you that you'll take time to buy a journal and every day start to write down the things that have seeped out of your spirit into your soul. Guys, this sounds really girly, right? Journaling. It sounds sissy, right? But it's not. It's empowering. I've been doing it for 32 years. I told my wife, burn these journals before my children look after them after I die. Every sin I've ever committed is in there. Every prayer of repentance is in there. Every good story's in there, but they're completely outweighed by what a mess I am, how broken I've been over the years. Don't let my children read these, but it's my way of journaling what I feel like God is saying to me. I can't recommend that, ladies and gentlemen, enough. And then just find a part of the day where you get rid of your husband or you get rid of your wife and you just be alone, or get rid of your mom, right? Get rid of your mom. Get rid of your mom and your dad for 20 minutes, open your journal, open the Bible, find one verse and pray it out loud. Let me tell you what happens. Down the road, all kinds of ideas come to you. You will get business ideas that will employ people who nobody else would employ, and you'll change the landscape of a city. There are people in here with genius in them that God just wants to help draw out and change a city. So you can read the Bible, read it one verse out loud. So this gets weird now. I'll do that for an hour. I'll just read the same verse over and over again. I have never once read through the Bible in a year. I don't see it changing people. I see feeding on the Word of God, discovering who Jesus is out of these pages, and then asking the Holy Spirit in my journal, Holy Spirit, empower me to do what Jesus did here. Then I write the verse and be like this. I left home, I don't know when I left home, last week I think, and the Wednesday before, a man asked to see me and said, when somebody asks me to lunch, who I haven't seen for 10 years, I think, this is not going to be good. So I sat down, I go, so Phil, what's going on? He said, I just needed to tell you over lunch, give me indigestion or what. He said, I don't like you. And I said, I'm really sorry about that. Why is that? And he recalled an incident that I couldn't remember. But what's important in that conversation is his perception, not my beliefs. So I said, Phil, I honestly don't remember it, but it sounds like I might have done that. And I'm sorry. And I was genuinely sorry. I'm sorry. And he goes, is there anything you want to tell me? I said, no, I don't think so, no. Other than putting me on the back foot every time I see you or bump into you. You know, other than that, we're fine. And he goes, oh, okay. Is there anything else you want to tell me, Phil? He goes, yes. He goes, I think you're a big sissy. I go, is that because of the way I dress or something? You know, because I'm married with 3 kids, you know. And I know what sissy means in England. I don't know what it means in America. He goes, you're just too gentle. I'm thinking, Jesus described himself once. He turned into the biggest compliment I ever had. He says, you're just too gentle. And I'm thinking, Jesus said, for I am gentle. And then he says, and when you're in the Bible study, even when that kid, the youth pastor's doing the talk, you're writing notes. Just fake humility. That's what he said. I went, I'm doing really good out of this. I am gentle and humble in heart. Trust me, I'm not, you know, but that's his perception of me. People will have views on what you're supposed to do. Shut that down. And you just do what God tells you in your journal. Just do that. Stay faithful. Treat each day like it's 1,000 years and treat 40 years like it's a day. And Father, in Jesus' name, forgive me for being a little bit long-winded, but somebody in here needed to hear the whole thing there. And I ask you to trigger something in people's hearts and minds. I pray, Lord, where people have felt hopeless about fulfilling the call of God on their life, whatever it is, where they felt hopeless, please restore their hope. Where they feel inadequate, help them to get into a little community of people of like mind, with some Christians in it who are positive and Jesus believing, and help them to get restored into the hopes and the dreams that you've put in their heart, Lord, in the name of Jesus. I pray for people like Anne and others in the room here who can identify with this, that they'll begin to journal, and you'll give them mandates. You'll give them a commission to love their neighbor as they love themselves. And Lord, that you would put in their hearts and minds dreams, ideas that everybody thinks, oh, that was really obvious, but nobody else thought of it. Lord, give them creativity, innovation. Lord, there's a young woman in here who's got creative gifts on the inside. It can make money. It can employ people. Give her a hope and a dream There's a young man in here who thinks you've got to be a certain way to be a follower of Jesus. Shatter that image and let him be himself in the name of Jesus.